Well, hello and welcome. Thanks for joining me. This is Ros Jones, your business coach with my weekly podcast show, Bold Business Bits, coming to you from Yorkshire. This is where I have a great conversation with a phenomenal female business boss. We share some of the bold stuff they do, lessons they've learnt, adversities they've overcome, and the fun they have. And then I'll be dipping into my toolkit and sharing a top tip. Business can be lonely, so make sure you join us each week and be part of our show. Well, hello and welcome to episode 30 of Bold Business Bits podcast show. This is Ros Jones and today I'm talking with Toni Eastwood of Quantum Vantage. We had a truly fascinating conversation and talked about how Toni came to leave her apparently high-powered job when she realised the culture of the organisation was deeply out of alignment with her own personal values. Toni had up sticks from the south to move to North Yorkshire with her husband. She'd left behind her friends, family and a great career to start again until she realised that the culture was bad. The straw that broke the camel's back led her to be sitting in a coffee shop, drawing out her future on a napkin. But drawing on her best skills, the things she knew, she set up her own business. Now she runs Quantum Vantage, which is based on the premise of doing one small thing every day that will lead you to your long-term vision. We also talked about the research she's done on the economic engagement or disengagement of women and the crucial importance of resilience that will help you on the pathway to your longer term goals. Please listen on and enjoy our show. There's some really powerful messages here. So hello and welcome to Bold Business Bits podcast show. This is Ros Jones and today I'm joined by Toni Eastwood of Quantum Vantage. Hi Toni.
Hi Ros, how are you?
I'm very good, thank you. Thanks so much for joining us today.
You're welcome.
So Toni, Quantum Vantage, what does that mean?
So the name arose out of a model that I've developed over the last 30 years on the back of research. And the quantum is all about the micro things that we do each day in order to achieve our goals and our ambitions. And the vantage is about the sort of strategic viewpoint and our vision. So yeah, pulled them to both together.
Okay, brilliant. So like the compound effect where you just do one small thing every day and it builds up and has massive impact.
Yeah.
Ah, brilliant.
Yeah.
And when did you set the business up?
I set the business up in 2016.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And before that?
Before that, I had another business that is still running, but it's a not-for-profit business.
Okay.
So I set up in business for the first time in 2012 after a stint in corporate. And I decided I wanted to change my life.
Ah, interesting. What were you doing in corporate and what was it that made you change your life?
Right. So in corporate, I was working in what they call now talent and skills and diversity. So I was a director of talent and academy for a FTSE 30 company. And I did the whole sort of shop floor to top floor piece around talent, the skills the business needed. Very exciting job. I thought when I walked into it, it was going to be the job of my dreams and I would retire on my shares at some point earlier than 60. But not too soon into that job, I found that it wasn't what I wanted it to be, and the atmosphere and the sort of values of the organisation weren't really aligned. And I just found that I couldn't work with that anymore.
Right, okay. That's so important, isn't it? The culture of a business. I think that's the number one reason why people leave.
Yeah.
So while you were there, I mean, it's a big step from corporate, a sort of a secure career in corporate, to setting up by yourself. So that must have been something big that, what was it? How did that happen?
It was pretty massive, actually, but equally, when I look back, it was a real pivotal moment for me. So it was a number of things. I think it was like there was then one thing that broke the camel's back. But basically, the way the job and the role was sold to me was completely different to the reality of what I walked into. So, you know, I was promised a blank sheet of paper, a huge budget, and the opportunity to do great things around talent, that had never been done before, certainly not in that organisation. But I soon found that every day was like going in and taking a cold shower and having a fight. There were a lot of people around me, particularly white, pale male, on the board in senior management positions who literally just didn't want things to change. It was a very command and control culture, and that wasn't getting the best out of people. In a way, it was almost abusive.
Right.
And I just found that, someone who's gone in to care about talent and nurture that, that's not a great environment to be working in. So it came to the point, and it's funny you mentioned about a safe career. It came to the point where I was asked to get rid of 16,000 people.
Wow.
And not by making them redundant, that I realised that actually that is not what I'm about, and that shouldn't be what any business is about.
Yeah.
I get that you have to control costs, but actually it was, billions of pounds of turnover. And for me, I felt it was more about shareholder greed and meeting that requirement than what the real requirement of growing the business sustainably and looking after people who frankly were the lifeblood of our business. And without them, the business can't operate, but they weren't valued. And I just thought, that's not what I came here to do. And that was the moment when I just said, well, I'm not doing that, but I will be one of those people. And literally I sort of basically walked out.
Right.
But really frightening. I had no idea what I was going to do. But it was like I say, really pivotal, because it really made me think, I have got nothing now. I'd sold up my home. I'd moved from the south to the north. My husband had come with me. We literally gave up everything for my career, the next step. And I just thought, I have to make something work now. So, yeah.
Let's go back just to the job with the, just seems a bit incredible, I guess. But I know that this stuff does happen. But so they brought you in to be the talent person. So somebody must have had a big idea about that. But doesn't it sort of align with this idea that you paint there of this board of old-fashioned, stubborn men not listening?
Yeah.
So just bizarre. Is that just somebody walking, or somebody just coming up with an idea and just for the sake of it, or?
It was really strange because there was this massive vision for the company. And certainly for me, like at a really emotional level, that I really was engaged with the way that they wanted to change the way that they did business, that the way they engage with people, around the brand, around the values, around service, around coaching as a way of improving performance rather than catching people do things wrong.
Yeah.
Let's catch them doing it right. Let's coach. Let's really enable people to be the best versions of themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And that came from quite a visionary HR director.
Right.
But when you rub that up against the reality of a business that, it's a originally family owned, hundreds of years old, run in a very command and control way, every male on the board was brought up by that original founder. Were taken on by him, and they managed in his way. And that was basically command, control, and a lot of fear.
Bullying.
Yeah, not a very nice culture. But in a way, I found it fascinating to start with because I was seeing people, and particularly women, who'd been in the business 20, 30 years. Their children worked there. Sometimes their mums or dads even worked there. And I likened it to an abused family because they loved it because of the camaraderie that they had at a local level.
Yeah.
But when you then saw how people from senior management then drilled down and command and control led, it was almost an alien thing, but they were just so used to it. And it was almost like, well, they do it because they love us kind of thing. Yeah. But they were so loyal. there was no real development opportunities for them. And really that was what I was going in. So for me, it was like that, it was so old school, old style, and where they wanted to go was so new age, new style, that I really wanted to be part of that journey and to be driving that. And we did lots of it, but it was just a fight a lot of the time, and just like an uncomfortable environment.
Well done to you to have the courage to move away from that. Well, you gave up everything, you've told me about how you moved from the south to the north and left your friends behind. So how did you come about with the idea of the first business then from that?
I kind of literally sat in a coffee shop, and I hadn't even told my husband that basically, in a way, I was losing my job. I was, I'm walking out. And I just thought, what the hell am I going to do? And literally, I got a napkin, a white napkin, and I had a pen, and I was just thinking, well, God, what can I do? What am I any good at? And you start to think, part of the journey and leading me up to that decision, I had actually thought, well, if you want me to come here and just do as you say, that is what I will do. And I ended up on my knees. I felt paralysed. I couldn't make any decisions. I wasn't myself, and I lost all my confidence. It was some of that I sort of like left with, thinking, well, I'm not any good. This, I must be a failure because I couldn't make this work. All those typical things that go, especially for women, that go through their heads about they're not good enough. And I actually had to give myself a bit of a talking to, really, like go back to what I do know. So what is it, what is it you've done all your life and all your career? And that was about people. That was about, for the early part of my career, sort of first 15, 20 years, it was all around small business development, working with women in business. And I kind of went back to that and said, well, no, that's what I'm great at doing. I'm creative, I'm entrepreneurial, I don't mind sticking my head above the parapet. And I know that a lot of what I've done in like the corporate world and all of the programs and all of the stuff that I'd done over that sort of career all led to helping people, helping women, helping small business owners, helping people be the best version of themselves. So that's kind of where I started. And during my whole career, I've been a bit of an accidental researcher. So I've done loads of research, I've published research, and it is all about talent, skills, how do you create success? So I knew that I had the foundations of a model for what success looks like. And I knew that if I pulled that together, I could just go back to some of my old stomping grounds, talk to people and think about how I might get a bit of business doing that.
That's fantastic. And also to have that strength to pull yourself up like that. What about the research though? So what kind of research is it that you've done?
So originally, back in 1999, I did a piece of research for the government. It was all around diversity and inclusion. And it was around how do we get more women into senior positions? How do we get parity at senior levels? How do we stop women leaving sectors like information technology, communications? There's a lot of women in those sort of sectors at sort of lower levels, but they're not rising up the ranks. They were leaving in droves. So I did a piece of research for the DTI around why that was happening. And then I went over to America and I worked with their small business administration because they were like 10 years ahead around economic engagement of women and social mobility and inclusion. So I looked at what they were doing over there. I did like a big study tour, mostly East Coast and mid-America, looked at what some of the agencies and organisations were doing. And then I brought that back to the UK, sort of helped write the women's enterprise strategy. And from there, just continue to research and develop, how do you untap potential? How do you engage people who might be disengaged, disenfranchised? How do you work with organisations to be more inclusive? particularly around the women's agenda.
Yeah.
That also looked at Black, Asian, minority, ethnic backgrounds, compound issues like disability, trying to bring what good practice was showing to how can we embed that in what we do around regional skills and national skills strategies for the UK. And as part of that, I won a big project with the European Union, which enabled me to get more into detail about the research around success, how you untap talent, developing the models, and then actually delivering programs.
Yeah.
I just fell in love with looking at what the issues and barriers were and going, actually, there's a really practical solution out of this. It doesn't have to be academic, and just kept doing it, really.
It sounds phenomenal. In terms of the women's agenda and this, the topic of women on boards is still very relevant, isn't it?
Yeah.
How far have we come, do you think?
Not very, is my sort of simple answer. Where there's been some inroads made, but if you look at, the target set by Lord Davis in 2011, I think by next year we should have been at 30%, and we're at about 25, 23%. And it goes up a little bit and it goes back a little bit. And so actually we're stagnating. We're not really making any inroads into that. And then also, if you look at things like women on non-execs on FTSE boards, there are a large number, but a large number of them are the same woman,
right.
So some women hold 2, 3, 4 positions.
Yeah.
So we're not really widening the talent pool. And plus, they're still non-execs. So what do we need to do to have women as executives? Yeah. And then when you look at where women have achieved those positions, let's say generally there's a 5-year tenure for a CEO. When they're leaving, and they're all in that phase now where they're about to leave, there isn't a female in the pipeline that can take over from them. So actually, those females have been in a really great position to make a difference, and yet that nothing's happened. So in a way, when some of those leave, we're going to go back to, it's probably going to be a male that takes over, and we're just not seeing the pipeline growing. And that's the trouble, is like if there aren't any women in the pipeline, then they can't get to those positions. And in some ways, I think it's a lot of lazy thinking still with organisations, with headhunters, with boards themselves, that just don't make that effort. I don't believe that there aren't the women out there with the talent and skills that they need. But the jobs aren't necessarily that attractive. There aren't enough other women around that are doing it. And also the way things are run don't necessarily fit in with what women have as other priorities as well. Their families, children, their families, and often at the age that you're on boards, it's your elder family that you might be looking after. And board meetings are generally, late at night or, at odd hours. So I think there's loads of things wrong that aren't being addressed.
What is there something about women not willing to step up, not wanting to shine, being afraid to shine? What is? Do we take responsibility here?
Yeah, I think yes. And so, yes, there's a bit about one. I think it's a rare woman that I've met at any level that doesn't at some point say they feel like they're going to get found out that they're, that imposter syndrome or that lack of belief that actually I can't believe I'm sitting around this table, I'm going to get found out at some point, but I'll just carry on until I do. A lot of women really suffer with that. And I'm not saying that men don't, but a lot of women really suffer with that. A lot of women then choose not to be, choose that I don't want to be part of something that looks like that. It's not for me. There's not enough of people like me around that table, so I vote with my feet. I don't want that. Then there's actually at the point where you may be needing to make the choices in your career about one day I might want to sit on a board, so therefore what sort of career decisions do I need to make, is usually at the point where women are having their children. And therefore, when they go back into the workforce or they make decisions around their childcare and their careers, and they'll often give up pay and great jobs, or not great jobs, but more senior jobs, because they want the flexibility to look after their children. So there's a load of things that happen. It's not just one thing. And I think that's half the problem, is this isn't just one issue. It's many, many issues. And they're not always fully understood. They're not always fully articulated. So it's really hard to come up with. It's not one solution to it either. It's a multitude of things.
What can we do to keep moving in the right direction, and what's your advice?
Part of the issue is this equality issue, because actually we're just all humans and we don't necessarily want to be equal. What we want to be is have something that suits us as an individual. It needs to be individualized. So that's part of the solution, in that how can you be more inclusive in the way that you think about how we open up these positions to a wider range of people from a wider range of backgrounds and, social backgrounds, commercial backgrounds. How do we open up these positions so that they become more attractive and so that we can enable people to be part of it? So, think about different ways of, perhaps running boards. How can we create a pathway into them? Think about creating different career pathways for younger women so that they can get the experience that they need maybe earlier in their career, so that they are able to make a choice and have their children and their career not suffer, so that when they go back, they are still on that pipeline to, more senior positions. I think it's about more flexibility and inclusiveness around how you recruit, and around how you think about that skill set or capabilities. They don't have to come from the same, mould all the time. And that's what generally the recruiters do, is they look in the same places at the same type of people, and they're not sort of widening the field.
So what piece of advice, if I'm sitting here before you, I'm a woman just embarking on a career or maybe setting up my own business, what piece of advice would you give, Toni, to me?
I think the main one is to really believe in yourself and to create a really engaging sort of purpose or vision for yourself. So what is me going to be like in 5, 10, 15 years? What are the things that I would have liked to achieve? How do I want to be? And what does that look like for me? And the sort of more powerful you can get that vision of what that looks like, the more likely you are to be able to then say, right, okay, now how do I create a pathway to that? But also be really prepared that there is no one way. And actually probably the first, second and third way that you try isn't going to work. It's like, be prepared to fail, pick yourself up, start again. And I think that sort of resilience is something that's really lacking in, for everybody. We all want things to be perfect, and success isn't like a straight line trajectory. It's actually almost a spiraling up and a spiraling down, because, we win and then something happens, the proverbial hits the fan, life happens or something happens and it's not gone the way you think it might, and you feel like you're losing. So I sort of say, you win or you learn. So what's the learning? Right now I'm back on my path, or I need to choose path B or C now because A is not working for me. And just be prepared to have that flexible, hold that vision out there, maybe detach it from the calendar so you're not putting loads of pressure on yourself, but going, believe in so much, I will do anything to get there, and I'm going to work my way and I will continue whatever happens, and I will overcome whatever's thrown at me. And kind of, my belief is a lot of those things happen for a reason, and they're lessons to be learned. And if you learn from them, then you're much stronger and you can pick yourself up much quicker the next time something comes around.
Brilliant. Well, thank you so much, Toni. It's been fantastic to speak with you today. Thank you.
Thank you, Ros.
In our conversation, Toni spoke a bit about resilience and the importance of resilience to deal with the stuff that happens on your pathway to achieving your vision. So how do people deal with difficult events that change their lives? The death of a loved one, loss of a job, serious illness, and other traumatic events. These are all examples of very challenging life experiences. Many people react to such circumstances with a flood of strong emotions and a sense of uncertainty. Yet people generally adapt well over time to life-changing situations and stressful conditions. What enables them to do so? It involves resilience, an ongoing process that requires time and effort and engages people in taking a number of steps. What is resilience? Resilience is a process of adapting well in the face of adversity. Research has shown that resilience is ordinary, not extraordinary. People commonly demonstrate resilience. Being resilient doesn't mean that a person doesn't experience difficulty or distress. Emotional pain and sadness are common in people who have suffered major adversity or trauma in their lives. In fact, the road to resilience is likely to involve considerable emotional distress. It's not a trait that people either have or do not have. It involves just changing the way you think. So behaviours, thoughts and actions that can be learned and developed in anyone. So here are 10 ways to build resilience. So connections with other humans is crucial. So good relationships with your close family members, friends or others is really important. Accepting help, being able to ask for help and support from those who care about you and will listen to you strengthens resilience. Avoid seeing crises as insurmountable problems. It's the way you think about something that happens. So you can't change the fact that highly stressful events happen, but what you can change is how you interpret and respond to those events. So try looking beyond the present to how future circumstances may be a little better. Accept that change is part of living. So certain goals may no longer be attainable as a result of adverse situations, but accepting circumstances that cannot be changed can help you focus on circumstances that you can alter. So think about what you have control over in your life. Move towards your goals. So Toni spoke about having a long-term vision and doing that one thing every day that's going to help you get there. Develop some realistic goals. Do something regularly, even if it seems just like a small accomplishment that enables you to move towards your goals. Instead of focusing on tasks that seem unachievable, ask yourself, what's the one thing I know I can accomplish today that helps me move in the direction I want to go? And then take decisive action. Act on adverse situations as much as you can. Take decisive actions rather than detaching completely from problems and stresses and wishing they would just go away. And also, it's about learning and growing as a human being. So look for opportunities for self-discovery. People often learn something about themselves and may find that they have grown in some respect as a result of their struggle with loss or whatever the adversity is that you encounter. Many people who have experienced tragedies and hardship have reported better relationships, greater sense of strength even while feeling vulnerable, increased sense of self-worth, more appreciation just for life. Nurture a positive view of yourself. So developing confidence in your ability to solve problems and trusting your instincts helps build resilience. Keep things in perspective. Even when facing very painful events, you can try to consider the stressful situation in a broader context and keep a long-term perspective. So avoid blowing the event out of proportion. It's all part of the pathway, as they say. Maintain a hopeful outlook. An optimistic outlook enables you to expect that good things will happen in your life. So try visualizing what you want rather than worrying about what you fear. Take care of yourself, of course. Pay attention to your own needs and feelings. Take part in activities that you enjoy and find relaxing. Exercise regularly. Taking care of yourself helps to keep your mind and body primed to deal with situations that require resilience. And there's other things that you can do, of course. So some people, for example, write about their deepest thoughts and feelings related to trauma or the other stressful stuff that happens in their life. I really think that getting the stuff out of your head and onto paper really helps build up resilience and clear your mind for other things. The key is to identify ways that are likely to work well for you as part of your own personal strategy for fostering resilience. And I think Toni is a great example of how she's built resilience in her life and how she now shares it with other people. So I hope this has been interesting and useful and informative and even inspirational. Please do subscribe to my show, and I'm looking forward to hearing from you next time. Bye for now. This has been your Ros Jones Bold Business Bits podcast show. If you'd like any further information about anything we've discussed today, please just get in touch. Go to businesscoachingyorkshire.co.uk. Please join me again next week when I'll be speaking with another phenomenal female business boss with bold business bits. And remember to subscribe to my show. Thanks for listening.